there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
And welcome to this week's episode of I Never Knew But My Dog Did podcast. So happy to have all of you here as I'm recording. It is a Friday. Woo woo. So what could be better? I'm in a good mood, looking very forward to the weekend. Hopefully here in Texas, it'll be nice, but you never know, hour by hour. And the super cool thing is that my next guest, she also just transplanted to Texas. And so neither of us really know where each other lives, but we're going to find a way to get together and have coffee. So my next guest is Elizabeth, and I'm not even going to try to say her last name.
It's Mikotowi.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Elizabeth Mikotowi is here. Hi, Miss Elizabeth.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Guys, I now have all the videos on YouTube. And so I'm excited to say you can see beautiful. Oh, it's a puppy.
Yeah, that's Athena. She's not very happy. I let the other dogs out and she's like mad that I made her stay in with me.
Oh my God. I love puppies. I'm all about the puppies. So if you need to let her in, let her out, whatever you need to do, I always give time for puppies. So whatever.
Oh, she'll be fine. She has a pile of treats and she has food. She just wants to run with the other dogs. So I can't let her do that right now.
Okay, perfect. As long as it doesn't distract you. So guys, I just can't even fathom the story that Elizabeth has of her life and what she's been through. And when you meet her in person, you would never know that she's been through what she has, because I was just telling her, she's a shining light who just overcame, which all my guests always have these really triumphant and horrible, heartbreaking, difficult stories, but yet you can see once we shed all of that trauma and negative energy, we end up being lighter and happier and these bright lights in the world. So let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth. Elizabeth was adopted at birth and she had a safe, loving home growing up. And it wasn't until she went out on her own that she had some real issues. She was in a very violent relationship that left her with permanent brain injury and addicted to painkillers. Eventually, she went to the battered women's shelter and they turned her away. After speaking with police, this makes me angry. They said her injuries were too extensive and her situation put the other women in the shelter in danger. If you can't go to a shelter because you're in extreme danger, I'm not sure what we're able to do, but Elizabeth is going to tell us about some legislation she's been helping to get passed. So her situation would put other women in the shelter in danger. And so get this, listeners, drug dealers ended up protecting her. And then she eventually became a dealer herself. She had a nonviolent drug charge that led her to be in federal prison. After she got out for good, she continued her sobriety and her healing journey. She does art shows in the community, writing contests, and launched an environmentally friendly clothing brand based on her art, which is being sold in stores. And that just makes me so happy. It's a creative outlet, and I'm all about that, people. So she was working with state representatives, getting bills put on the table, and some passed. And now she's working on editing her memoir, painting, and of course, saving rescue dogs, which is near and dear to my heart. So Beautiful Elizabeth. How are you on this fabulous day?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you. Now, what I do here on I Never Knew is we talk about the knee story. And man, reading your bio, you've got a lot of knee stories. And that's the moments where you were brought to your knees and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do with my life? What happens to me from here? So I'll let you start wherever you want to start. It could be childhood, it could be teenage, it could be wherever. So tell us about your story.
Well, nothing too eventful happened during my childhood. I mean, my parents got divorced. I started showing some signs of mental health issues, and they gave me Prozac and all these other antidepressants. And that's like the first thing they do with kids having mental health issues. And of course, it put me in psychosis and made me suicidal. And my dad was like, she wasn't like that until you put her on those pills. And, come to find out, I'm not depressed. I'm not bipolar. I'm actually high functioning autistic. So I get overwhelmed very easily. And, I have sensory issues that I didn't understand. And I had, symptoms that kind of spread over ADD, bipolar, like, not to those extremes, but it was like a watered down version of it. Yeah. And so I've been through like every diagnosis they have. And I had to figure it out for myself that I was high functioning autistic. I don't even have an official diagnosis, but I've taken all the online tests and I've scored significantly high. And honestly, I don't even want to get officially diagnosed because then people can put you in conservatorships really easily and, take away your freedoms like that. So yeah. I'm good with where I'm at. But once I got out on my own, I was, dating men that were very abusive. And I don't really know why. People always ask me, well, why did you get into that? Like, I don't know. And then I find out my biological mother barely made it out alive from domestic violence. And, women generations back in my family, it literally, just because I got adopted doesn't mean that I escaped that generational trauma. And, he beat me with a wooden dowel to the point my skull was showing. And they had to sew the muscle back, then sew the skin back. And I started getting seizures, and I found out I was pregnant with my son that day. And they gave me opioids. And first I took them, but then they're like, all right, here's your appointment for the pain clinic. And I'm like, pain clinic? Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't want to keep taking this stuff like I'm pregnant. Like, I can't keep taking this stuff. Yeah. Well, the fact that I was getting seizures and that my blood pressure was skyrocketing, they said that put the baby in danger. And if I refused, then it would result in a call to Child Protective Services. And so these people that are stuck on the stigma that, oh, you chose to be an addict. No, I didn't. In fact, I tried to stand up for myself at every turn. The first time I shot up was because my ex trapped me in the bathroom and tortured me and said, you're going to do it. You're going to do it the right way. And I had no fight left in me. Yeah. And so, these things escalate, and, it wasn't just the physical abuse, it was the financial abuse. Every time I got any money, he'd take it from me. Yeah. And, it just, I don't think people understand the psychological damage this does. Like, I never had a conscious thought, I want to kill him or I want to physically harm him, but I started having dreams about killing him. And, then, after him, I was very quick to react. Like, the next dude that tried to put his hands on me went to the hospital. It wasn't me that time. Like, I started snapping. And when I went to the battered women's shelter, like it said in my bio, first they called me a liar. They said that other women come in and they're crying and upset. I had no emotion. I was like in shell shock. Yeah. And apparently because I didn't have the right reaction to my abuse, the scar on my head, on my face wasn't enough for them. They called me a liar. And I said, all right, you want to call me a fucking liar? I'm going to go get my hospital records. I'm going to go get the police that brought me to the hospital. The last showdown between, him and I, where he got into a high-speed chase, came after me with a shotgun, whole bunch of great stuff.
Right. And there's a paper trail too. There's a police report and hospital records. So, I mean, I
went and I got all
to
that.
prove that. Yeah, exactly.
I went and I got all that, and then they did a complete 180, and they said, well, after speaking with police and going over your records, your injuries are too extensive, and it puts the other women in the shelter in danger. The girl that got the bed didn't even get hit. The guy kicked her car, and that's domestic violence, absolutely, intimidation, destruction of property. But in comparison to my situation, where I would have died if I hadn't gone to the emergency room, like and this created a lot of internalized misogyny for me, because when I was pregnant, he held a knife to my face and goes, one more tear rolls down your cheek and I'm going to cut your face off.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's when I learned to just bottle it up, and I'd go into shell shock and I wouldn't have any tears. Yeah. So when men would cry or show any emotion, I would tear them apart. I would tear them apart because of this. Like, oh no, I'm not allowed to cry. No, you're not allowed to cry. I'm going to make you feel this big and I'm going to destroy you. And so women that would, it's not that it would make me mad at them, unless if they were using it for like manipulation tears. I had a very big problem with that. And, especially now that like I wasn't even allowed to cry and had it used against me by the shelter. You didn't cry. You didn't have the right reaction. Like, no. So it started, I like when other people would start crying, if it was something like, unless if it was like someone dying or something extreme, like that was like on my level of, okay, that's something to cry over. It would set my brain off to, it would be very triggering, and it would irritate me because my brain was telling me you're in danger. Tears had a knife held to my face before when I was
right. So you were programmed that we don't show that, and that was like literally a survival method, is do not cry. Right. And coming from my own background of being abused as well, emotionally, mentally, and physically, it's weird because even to this day, people will watch movies that make them cry. I don't cry. I just don't cry. Right. And I'm like you, like usually I cry happy tears, or I cry, I when I'm really angry or frustrated is the only thing, but I'm not a crier now. And I love that you said that, because it's not a matter of how you can't, that makes me so angry about the shelter, because you cannot judge the seriousness of a situation based on the emotions of the victim. That's not a good measurement, because you have no idea how this victim has been through this time and time again. And we numb ourselves, and we learned when you react, you are in danger. So stop doing that. And what I heard from you too was seeing the tears from someone else brought out this this rage. And yes, like, wait a minute, I'm not allowed to do that. So when you do that, I see it as a weakness, and I'm annoyed that you're allowed to do that and I wasn't.
Exactly. And so I had to like come to terms with that trauma, and now when people cry, I feel so much empathy for them. Like, all I want to do is fix it for them. Yeah. And, that was, the healing that came in. And I really had to get to, just take every little thing and realize why I was reacting. And, I'm not this psycho, and I'm not this heartless sociopath. I literally went through a stage in prison where I was like, I'm a sociopath. Like, I have no empathy for anyone. And it wasn't that, especially with high functioning autistics, we shut our emotions off when it's not safe for us to feel them. And I didn't know that. So, prison, it's not exactly a safe place for you to process your emotions, and you make yourself vulnerable that way. So, I literally got to the point where I was like, that's it. Like, I'm going to get out, and my friend starts laughing at me. She's like, dude, you're not a sociopath. Like, the fact that you're even worried about this, like, proves you're not. Like,
but it's like when you're told stuff over and over and over and over, you start to believe it. And interestingly enough, I'm going to actually start coaching my autistic friends, and also ADHD, and because I am neurodivergent myself. And so I've just I was diagnosed years ago when I was like 35, but then I've realized all these different ways that my brain's wired different. And And I love it. And I'm embracing my superpowers. Like I'm embracing what I do really well with this. And I'm kind of like, I feel sorry for the people who don't have it, because I can multitask like nobody's business, and I can squirrel with the best of them. So I love that you said that about the high functioning autism, and people that don't understand it will be like, wait, you don't look like you you don't look like you have autism, but it's a neurodivergence where things are just, we do things differently. We are wired differently. Our brains process things differently. We're very visual. We're very sensitivity is a big sensory is what I meant. Things that don't bug others like are really big for us. Chewing and really textures.
Any filing, I can't take it. Like and it's funny you called it a superpower, because it was one of the drug counselors in prison. He said, I wish they would end this stigma telling people with mental health diagnosis that they are disabled. They are not disabled. They are different. And, you see ADHD kids, they can size someone up in a matter of seconds. Like, it is a superpower. It comes with a lot of setbacks that make your life harder, because this society is not designed for people like us. And it is not kind to people like us.
Yeah. Let's think about this. I'm gonna be a little off topic. I'm not off topic, but I'm gonna go off on a little thing with you for a moment. We're gonna take this little side path. What if neurodivergence is normal? What if all the neurotypicals are unusual? See, that's the difference. It's only because society has said if you do things different from the norm that's been established over generations and for however 300 years, it's weird and it's different, and we're labeling you. And I don't see it that way. I just see it as we all have a piece of neurodivergence in us. We all do things different. We're not robots. We're not all the same people. So it shouldn't even be like a diagnosis or a stigma or a label. It's like, we're all different. Let's just keep it at that. We're just a really diverse bunch of humans thinking differently and doing things uniquely in our own way. So sorry, I just went off on that.
Oh, you're fine.
Squirrel. But what I really want to talk about is, how did you cope in prison with what was going on with the trying to get sober? Well, I mean, instantaneously, they don't give you a chance to, obviously detox. And B, with being told you're a psychopath and all the trauma, trying to process all of that. How did you cope with it? And what's wrong with the prison system that we need to talk about?
Well, my first week at Somerset County, I witnessed an entire pot of women get stripped because they signed up for a razor, and the male sergeant wanted a list of who shaved their vaginas and who didn't. Those that did were punished. This is the PG stuff that goes on. And, when I was at Somerset, I was put in solitary. I was given the wrong medication, so it put me in psychosis. So I'm in solitary, and this female sergeant, is telling me to kill myself because she didn't like me. And she did this to another inmate after I got out, and he tried to hang himself. They had to cut that inmate down from a suicide attempt, and she still has her job. And one thing I want to add about the shelters real quick. This is a problem with victim shelters. So a friend of mine tried to get into the human trafficking shelter. They wouldn't take her because she wouldn't snitch out her pimp. He had her mom's address, where her kid was. He had all of her IDs, all of everything. So you're turning victims away because you're not getting something out of them. It is not a victim's job to put a sex trafficker in jail. They are just trying to survive.
Right.
And for these shelters to get all this money and all this, whatever, it was like my situation. And then when I got out of prison, there was a Miss Maine who got the guy in trouble. There was domestic violence. She put him away, all that stuff. She was on like this slander tour, like all through the media, trying to get all of his businesses like shut down or taken away. Like, no, he already served his time. It's not okay what he did, but for you to continue on and to keep coming for this man's business, like, you know, if you don't like the law, change it.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing anything for future survivors. You're gassing up your own bruised ego.
Wow.
And you're mad he's still successful. And what? Like,
yeah.
And you know, if she was doing something for other victims and, you know, trying to, I told her, I was like, why don't you sue that guy and open up your own shelter? So what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. And she was just all about her own ego and, you know, bringing this guy down. And it's like, I'm not about bringing my ex down. He can bring himself down, which he's done over and over again. I want to change things for the victims who have it even worse than me.
But
Because,
that takes a level of self-awareness, though. So she's dealing with still anger and frustration and rage and pain, where you said, I've healed this. I'm now going to take this and use it for something good. So that's the difference when we look at others who behave in a certain way. If we look at it, why are they doing it? It makes it a little bit easier to understand. Not that we agree with it, but we can understand it. Now, please forgive me. Someone who's never even had, well, I've had a traffic ticket, I should say, but never been arrested for anything. Well, almost, because I did get into a little bar fight once. But
let me find out you throw hands.
But luckily I got out of it because my girlfriend was a police officer. So she said, you know, you better hurry up and get out of here. And this was years ago in Monterey, California. So forgive me if I sound really ignorant and silly, but my only reference to prison is Orange is the New Black. And as you are describing some of this stuff, it's like this dirty stuff that these guards do and these things that happen.
See, federal inmates who have done more than a year really don't appreciate her or her book, because she made it sound like it was Camp Cupcake, like you're going on a spa vacation or something. And, you know, I appreciate that she opened the door and started the conversation about mass incarceration. And nobody can take that from her, because it was great. Thank you for that. But, you know, she talked a little bit about, you know, solitary and how awful it was. But, you know, it's like she watered everything down. And I was at Danbury. She didn't talk about, you know, the 4 inches of black mold that are in the showers that women are breathing in, you know. And then while I was there, you know, they built an $80 billion brand new facility, but they couldn't fix anything at Danbury where there already were inmates. They just wanted to put 30 more inmates down the hill to make money off of. And this is why this is happening. You know, America makes up 25% of the global incarceration population. We make up 1/4 of the entire planet's incarceration population. We're 5% of the population. We're also doing 70% of the pharmaceuticals. This is all about money. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. A hospital saves $350,000 a year contracting their linen to be washed by inmates instead of paying regular people minimum wage, not even a livable wage, just minimum wage. And this is what happens. They have us working 40 hours a week for $5.25 a month.
Oh my God.
You can't even buy tampons with that. They, you know, and it's under, well, I'll refuse. You know, you can go ahead and say that. They'll throw you in the shoe. They will take your good time away, you know, and everybody just wants to go home.
Yeah.
Like that's all you're trying to do is become better. You know, the addicts are trying, you know, not to, you know, you're trying to fix all your issues. And they love to say, oh, we have all these programs and we have, you know, all these great stuff that helps people rehabilitate. It takes 4 years to get into any of these classes. So if you have a long enough bid, you'll be able to take all these classes on top of all the trauma that you're going to experience while you're in there.
It's amazing to me what they want the outside world to see versus what's really going on. Why are we 25% of the global incarceration rate? What is it that we're doing here? Because
it's money.
Okay, so we want to incarcerate because it's a money generator.
They're making money. They get a free workforce from us. I mean, there were inmates moving dead COVID bodies and fighting wildfires out in California, getting paid pennies a day. You know, that's what they want. You know, whenever there's tons of laundry places and call centers. Like there are like places inmates go to work and they're like regular jobs. We just don't get paid anything for it. And it's disgusting because, you know, they say, oh, you have free healthcare and, you know, free food. Dude, the food they buy us comes in boxes that says not for human consumption. And I was there when the feds decided, oh, women are smaller than men. So they cut our food in half. The amount of food we got, they cut it in half. And when they run out of food, when they screw their budget up and run out of food to feed us, it's the women who go hungry first, because who do you want to tell there's no food left? A bunch of nonviolent women or a bunch of men who are going to riot and tear you up?
Right.
It's
Is there any
the women who go hungry
regulation?
first.
Is there any
No.
regulation or any sources
You can write a
that
grievance. You can write
Okay.
a grievance and then they do their own investigation. And most of the time they ignore you. But if you were to write a letter to, like, I don't know, politicians on the outside,
Yeah.
your life will be a living hell. The retaliation in there is real. Like and it's so bad. I mean, I pissed some guards off. They were planting stuff in my cell and they were telling the feds that I was threatening people. I never threatened anybody. I told the girl to get the hell away from me because she's a snitch and I don't like her. But, you know, I never threatened her or anything like that. And so they will literally like set you up for more time or just put you in solitary. Or another favorite thing these sociopathic guards like to do is when they're patting you down, they'll push you up against the wall to get a reaction out of you, like just even like to catch yourself. So if you move, they're going to say, oh, I thought he was going to hit me. And they can mace you, beat you down, you know, whatever. And if you react, if you fight back in any way, it's 5 years.
Oh my gosh. I mean, just this subhuman treatment. It disgusts me. Now, tell me about some of the legislation you were fighting for, because you were in Maine. And so now you're in Texas and we're in the red state now. So you can try to change that, because I'm not red and I won't get political here. But tell me about the legislation that you were trying to get changed. I love that you advocate. I love it.
So I was never into politics, but our former governor, Paul LePage from Maine, when I was in prison, he got on TV and said that black thugs from the hood come up to Maine, impregnate our white women, and flood our streets with drugs. I was a drug dealer. I participated in this shit. And it was not just them coming up here. It was because police informants and drug addicts, mostly police informants, would go down and get them. And it would be just a revolving door. So I wanted to call this stuff out. Not to mention, I was in prison with one of his escorts, one of the women that he used to pay for escorts. So, and his whole argument was, I'm willing to let you have your abortion rights. Yeah, right. I am well informed how you like women on your knees. I am not buying that for a minute. And, you know, I started talking with some of the state reps after an officer got arrested for giving this child drugs to give to her mother, who was giving him sexual favors for the drugs. He was a cop for over 30 years. So he's well versed in addiction, and he was extorting this woman's addiction and her mental health and using her child to do it. So I called the DA and I'm like, why aren't you charging him with a sex crime? This is extortion. This should be the same thing as, you know, correctional officers, because there's no such thing as consent with inmates in jail. I'm pushing for a bill that makes it the same with cops, because if a cop comes up to me and hits on me, the only thing I'm going to think is, what am I going to jail for when I say no? And, you know, the DA was like, you know, you made a lot of really good arguments, like things I never would have thought of because I've never been in your position. And you could make, you know, some good changes, but the way the law is written, it was consent. And I cannot charge him with anything, but I am going to take this into consideration, you know, for sentencing, because, you know, I didn't even think of that. But what you can do is write to your local legislature. They can put bills on the table. So that's how I started, you know, kind of, you know, playing around with politics a bit. And, you know, one of the bills that just got passed was all jails in Maine are now mandated to provide tampons and pads free of charge for women.
Thank God.
Yeah, well, what happens is women will get so desperate, they'll try to make tampons out of something and end up getting infections. And these guards don't care. I've watched women guards go, bleed on yourself. What do I care? Because they think it's funny. And it's like, dude, you're doing it to another woman. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Basic human needs. That's basic human needs.
Right.
Come on. That's basic hygiene. I mean, oh, that's
Right.
infuriating and you know, unfair treatment of women and gender specific here because men don't have to deal with any of that.
You know, and on top of it, they, you know, a regular box of tampons that costs what, $8? It'll cost 15 in there. All of their stuff in commissary, they jack the prices up. Like I had a little MP3 player, it cost $13.99 at Walmart. It cost $89 in there. They are making so much money off of us, you know, and it's just, you know,
they make money on everything. So it's just this money generator between the labor, the upcharges, the complete markup of necessities and your commissary items that, you know, make life bearable day to day. And let's be real. Okay. So we all make mistakes and crimes were committed. I understand that you're in there doing your time. You're paying for what you did, but there's no reason to be treating people subhuman like that and mistreating people. That's just me, human rights, basic human rights.
Yeah, you can't get better in an environment that's making you sick. And we are traumatizing these men and women in prison and then expecting them to get out of prison and be able to act normal. Solitary confinement, they did a study and it literally slows the brain down from the lack of stimulation. So like when I got out of solitary, people talking over each other would make me panic. Like my first instinct was, who do I got to fight? Yeah. My first instinct was literally violence. It cuts you off from your empathy. You know, you there's nothing to be hopeful for because you don't even, you know, you're stuck in there for however long. Like, and you know, the only stimulation you do get is violence and chaos. And watching people have medical emergencies and not be treated properly. I watched a girl go into labor. And they told her, if this is a false alarm, you're going to go in the hole. They were going to put her in solitary if it was a false labor. And the only reason they brought her is because all of us stood together and they didn't want to deal with 30 women rioting and flipping out because they didn't want to do their job. And I don't want to sit here and say that all these cops are bad because that's not true. And it doesn't help anything. And, you know, for every cop that hurt me or oppressed me, there was another risking their job trying to make it stop. And that's a problem too. You have these really great officers who act with integrity and actually want to help people. And they get, you know, bullied out of these positions. And especially women, like it is a very patriarchal, you know, institution. All these institutions are. So the women that will stand up to male officers for harming inmates or whatever, the decent ones, they get put in very dangerous positions. And it really bothers me because I don't like, they will literally leave these women, you know, in pods, you know, with men and not back them up because they had the audacity to hold these men accountable for hurting people.
Sounds like a mob mentality among COs where this is what we do and we have that's exactly that's what came to mind is that it's like a gang or it's like
absolutely is.
The kind of that good old boy mentality. And if you're a female CO, you're not part of the good old boys. And if you're a guy who's not following along, breaking all of these rules that we're doing, then we're going to treat you the way we treat the women. We're going to make you want to get out too.
Yeah. Well, that female officer that was telling me to kill myself, she is one of those, I'm going to uphold the patriarchy. So she did very well. I mean, she didn't even lose her job when that inmate tried to kill themselves. I'm like, you know, there was a girl, 18 years old, who was gassing her boyfriend up and messing with his mental health, telling him to kill himself. He killed himself. She got charged for a manslaughter for his death, which she should. But you're telling me this 18-year-old little girl who is sick in the head is going to go to prison, but this officer of the law who's grown gets to keep her job, gets to keep her pension.
And gets to psychologically abuse however many women that are in her care. Let me ask you, What is it like when you get out? Is there a lot of support, or is it just sort of you're out, you're done, you better find your way in the world kind of thing? Because I think that's important to follow up, right?
Yes, they give you 30 days of medication. And so this was why I did so bad on probation. All the trauma came flooding back when I got out to the streets. I had $1,300 worth of psych meds and no way to pay for it. And LePage was still in office. So they told me, well, if you want to get health insurance, you have to be pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't have any way to pay for these meds. So I detoxed off of them. I relapsed and then I went back. When I got out from Danbury after wrapping up probation, Janet Mills had taken over and she expanded main care. And this was like the game changer for me because I was able to continue therapy. I was able to go to the doctor and get properly medicated, and figure out what my issues were. It gave me a fighting chance, and it was still really hard. Like I went through an agoraphobia stage where I couldn't even come out of my house, but I got through it and I'm still here. I did have to go on MAT treatment, but you know what? At least I had the option because, they literally just send you on your way after completely institutionalizing you. Going to Walmart, I would throw up from the stress. They don't understand how it rewires your brain to make just every day going to the store, I would do dumb things like leave the water on because you push a button and the water goes and then it turns off by itself. So for years, that's all I did. And I'd drive my mother nuts because I'd always leave her water on.
I mean, people don't understand those small things that you become used to. I mean, you pick up anyone and put them in a different environment and then pick them back out of that environment and put them back in a different one. There's adjustments here.
Being around men, like the only men I had been around were cops and had complete authority over me. And, little things like keys, the sound of keys, the more keys on a chain, the higher up the officer is. So I hate the sound of keys. Flashlights, because, all night for, 3 years, I'd have cops putting a flashlight in my face. And, it's just so invasive. And, like they're doing this to the juveniles as well. Like the Republicans want to sit there and be like, oh, we need armed guards in every school. You put armed guards in these schools. And the only thing you did was send like tens of thousands of Black kids to juvenile facilities. And these juvenile facilities are even worse. It is where predators flock to for employment. 96% of predators have never been caught, never even see a courtroom. This is a problem. These kids are getting traumatized. When I was at Cumberland County, there's one juvenile center in Maine. It's awful. Every couple of months or years, they're in the paper for something horrible because horrible things happen to children there. And they bring the kids that they can't handle with the adults. They brought this one little girl. She was 17 years old, doing 18 months on a burglary. They brought her with us because she stabbed one of the COs after they had repeatedly raped her. When they told her she was going back for her last 2 weeks, she slit her own throat. That's what I dealt with on Christmas. There was a code white of all things, and I didn't know that meant suicide attempts. And it was so weird because I was listening to Papa Roach, Last Resort too, like when all this was happening, and then I find out she attempted to kill herself. That was better than going back to that place. And this is just like people with mental health issues, what we say is not always taken seriously. Like right. I could say the sky's blue, and someone would be like, well, she has mental health issues, so we right. can't take that. And it's like, you know what? I might be crazy, I might be loud, I might, be all over the place with my emotions, but I'm smarter than most of you.
Like, I would agree. Yeah. When you have more, I'm going to say, when you have more life experience, you have a hell of a lot more wisdom, and fight me on it. Come for me, people. Fight right. me on it. Because I'm just saying, I know from the more experience that I've had in life, the smarter I've gotten. And when you've been put in these traumatic survival life and death situations, you gain a lot of wisdom about people, perception, yes. situations. So how are you doing now? I want to talk about how you've overcome, how fabulous everything's going for you. So guys, I have to tell you how wonderful she's doing, and the fact that you're writing the memoir or editing the memoir. But I want to talk about your art and your clothing line. I cannot wait to see it. Do you have any with you?
Yes, I do. I brought some. I found art again in prison, and I have pictures to show you. So this is actually in the prison. I call it my blue period because they only let me paint with this beautiful, vibrant blue. And then I had black and white for shading. So these are the murals I painted all down the hallway, and I got paid $57 a month. For this job. I had one of the highest paying jobs in the prison.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that is so beautiful and symbolic. I love that. Look at that. Oh my gosh. You're so talented. Your shading is freaking fabulous. Ooh, I love that one. Look at that. I love it. Peace.
Yeah. And got a tree, and in between them would be all these great quotes that we picked out. Like one of my favorite ones was, expecting life to treat you fair because you're a good person is like expecting a bull not to charge because you're a vegan.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Something to help you get out of that victim mentality, because it's very easy to do.
I love it. And humor.
Over the pandemic, I found this amazing company called The Galleries, and they're French Canadian, and I am just so elated with them. Like, it's environmentally friendly, it's inclusive, it comes in plus sizes, and it's sized properly. Like, you know how they shove skinniness and prettiness down our throats, and then you have these brands out there that will size things 3 sizes smaller than it should be. And I remember being a teen and it really affecting how I felt about myself. And with all the mental health issues, I've never struggled from an eating disorder. It never got that bad, but I would never want to put a product out there that would, add to someone's body dysmorphia. Right. And this is one of my shirts here.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Get my hair out of the way. Yep. And I painted this. All of these are my paintings, and this is called a Faruski, and this is my lucky koi fish. I put gold scales in, to draw in abundance and wealth, and I'm very,
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Listeners, you have to go to YouTube because you have to see these to really appreciate. Look at the horse.
Yep. And I have one day I'll paint something gothic, kind of like this. And then the next day I'll paint flowers and butterflies. Like, I'm kind of all over the place, but there's really something for everybody.
I love that. Well, I think energetically we just shift every minute. So what's the difference? Oh, the butterflies. Look at.
Yeah. And everything is just so well made. Like, the quality is just amazing. And I love this scarf. This is my Pisces full moon scarf. And everything is just absolutely beautiful. Like,
you are so amazingly talented. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
And the material looks
these
great.
Are placemats. These are placemats. Coming for
gorgeous.
Yeah. And I even got some little bags too.
Little makeup bags. They look pillow covers.
Yep. Covers. And all of the paintings, you can see the whole painting on the tag, and you can also see all the paintings on the website.
Okay, well, that brings us to, where is the website? Because guys, you really need to go see her art and all of her items, because they're stunning. They're absolutely stunning, as you are. So what's your website where they can go shop?
It is legalleries.com/en/Elizabeth.Mikotowi.
Perfect.
You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm doing a series on TikTok about the violence against women that I witnessed.
Good girl.
And I also teach you some cool little prison hacks, like how to pour water through a locked door without spilling it, because you actually have to do that if you want water in some places. The guard won't always open the door for you so you can get water.
I want to follow you on TikTok. What's your handle on TikTok?
Okay, all my handles are the same. It's
Okay.
EPM underscore art underscore 1111.
Love it. Elimination. I love it, guys. I'm going to have all of this information as well on her episode. So it'll be both on the Apple as well as the YouTube. I'll have her website, and I'll go find her on Instagram and TikTok too. So I can put that in there for you guys. Elizabeth, I'm just so proud that you're doing so well, and you're taking such a negative experience and also being a voice for the women who are still there, who need change out in the world. And you're going to be that conduit that brings that change for them, because no one should be treated subhuman and abused because of what they've done in their lives. I just think that's
no,
horrific.
Your punishment is to be detained, not to be beaten, maced, raped, degraded, have your mental health, weaponized against you. And it's very racially motivated in there. I noticed a big difference from when I was in, the South, in West Virginia, Alderson, just the tone of voice they would use with Black inmates compared to me. And one of a stray dog came on to, the property, and one of the Black inmates was feeding her. And the guy from the kitchen goes, "Wow, I never thought I'd see you feeding that coon dog." I didn't know what a coon dog was at this point. Like, I was still very in the illusion of white supremacy that, racism and segregation and all this stuff is over with. And, everybody's equal now. I had to go to prison to see things for what it was. And, I didn't know what a coon dog was. I didn't know that that's what, slave masters would sick on, runaway slaves. I had no idea. And for him to use that language, like, first of all, there are no slaves anymore. Well, not that form. It's rebranded into another form. But, and I met a handful of women in prison that, were sterilized against their will and by the prisons. And this was before Trump filled up the ICE camps. And you heard about all of those refugee women, getting sterilized against their will. They were doing this to American women. And one thing I noticed is that not a single one of them were white. All of these women were women of color that were getting sterilized. So, and now all of a sudden it's a great day for white lives with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So no, they are still committing genocide. They are, and I like the way Black women get treated, by doctors. Like, I had no idea that was an issue either, until I heard these horror stories of, just people losing family members, or just doctors literally letting them die when they shouldn't, very treatable things. And it's just, a country cannot be, this is a great quote, a country cannot be judged by how it treats its highest citizen, but how it treats its lowest. And we are falling very short. They want to gaslight us with land of the free and all that stuff. You know what? I was in prison with all the female vets that were thrown away by the military for standing up to their rapist.
Wow. And this is, so listeners, this is all stuff that, we can bury our heads, or we can just stay in our safe little suburbs and pretend it's not happening, but that's not the reality of it. And you can hear from someone who's been there, done that. So if you want to get involved in that, you could reach out to your legislators, and to any of your lawmakers, and just, research, or could they even reach out to you?
Absolutely. I would be happy to talk with anybody. Also, here was the other bill that I got passed. So there was, and this is happening all across the country. So this needs to be like across the board. So in Bangor, there were 2 homeless encampments. Well, that went to 10 real quick during the pandemic. So there are all these homeless people and these greedy landlords, management companies that own, hundreds of properties. I'm not talking about, the small time landlords that have 1 or 2 properties. So they would be collecting these application fees. and not actually renting the apartment. So you've collected 70 application fees and you couldn't find a single tenant.
Yeah.
They're making triple the rent without turning the lights on. And it is driving the homeless crisis up. So I brought this to the state representative's attention, and they had no idea. Like, if you think they're not, I didn't think they were going to listen to me either. But honestly, people in different classes, they don't see our problems. Just like I didn't see the white supremacy problem till it was up in my face and I was in prison. Like, you have to give people the chance to do the right thing and be educated.
I love that. I love that you said that. Right. And I think we as a human race have to be willing to open our eyes to what is going on and not deny it because it's not in my immediate existence. And so for me, like, I always want to know, again, be the change you want to see in the world. I always want to know where is it that I can be best of service. And if we had more of a service mind in the world, we would be a better people and a better human race. So thank you for that. I'm going to
very sociopathic capitalistic nightmare we're living in. So
and it's sad, but I appreciate that you came on to give us some of this awareness, because I know that myself and listeners are probably completely unaware of what goes on. And we do think, the Orange is the New Black, oh, that's just fiction. But there are a lot of things in Orange.
It's 1,000 times worse than what she described. Like, and she was only there for 10 months.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even imagine years of that.
Like, and county jail is a lot worse than a federal prison camp. And, the most you have to worry about is the guards. The guards,
which is sad. Which is so that's
they're supposed to be the ones that are going to protect you, and they want you to think that, oh no, it's the inmates. Like, they show these Priya videos and they're like, don't take the chips, and me and my bunkie were sitting there laughing, like, man, I took the chips and the ding dongs. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
you become the animals they think you are. I think is clearly the message they send to you, like, because you're literally become this sort of, it's just a survivalist mentality at that point. And then you go out in the world and nobody's there, and then you have to really figure out life. So I could talk to you forever, but it's been an hour, and I'm so proud of you. So grateful that you showed us your beautiful art and your beautiful, beautiful clothing line. And guys, if you want to reach out to Elizabeth, again, you can always reach out, get a hold of me, go to lifecoachmarine.com. I have a contact section. Comments, anything you want to be a guest, you have anything that you want to speak to Elizabeth, or you need some information on Elizabeth, I'd be happy to pass that on. Love you all for listening. Thank you for all the 5-star reviews. My little housekeeping things, life coaching, dating coaching, relationship coaching, self-esteem, self-worth coaching, all of the good stuff, lifecoachmarine.com. Don't forget my books on Amazon. My dog is more enlightened than I am, and my dog is my relationship coach. And last but not least, my doggy boutique, my dog is everything.net. We have healthy, organic, good treats for your babies, as well as lots of fun apparel and accessories. And I did just buy little baseball hats for dogs. So go on and get you a little baseball hat for your puppy, because they are adorable. So thank you all. I know, because with your little rescues. So thank you all for listening. Until next week, take care of you, take care of each other. Most of all, please take care of those furry babies. Love you all. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.